Oh, Jeremy,
Hey, Don.
we got He-Man going on. Did
What?
you did you uh did you catch the Netflix?
Yes. Yeah. What is it called? Revelations?
Yeah, Masters of the
He-Man Masters
Universe
of the Universe
Revelation.
Revelations?
Not
So
He-Man.
good.
Yeah. So He-Man's not in the title. It's Masters of the Universe Revelation. Kevin Smith, and because the reason why that's important to distinguish is because there's another Netflix series that's going to be coming out called He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, and it's a
Oh,
separate project, separate production company entirely. Um, I don't know too much about it, other than it. The animation style is definitely geared more towards kids.
okay.
So I think it's kind of a introduction, or it's kind of like bringing He-Man into like what He-Man would be for the current generation.
Yeah. So, like being able to share it with our own kids now, since that's something that we grew up with.
Mm-hmm.
But to
But it
that
would
point,
probably be different.
yeah. And I'd like to bring up to that point that the Masters of the Universe Revelations was not geared towards kids,
No,
not young kids by any
no, it was
means. Like,
not.
holy smokes.
And what incredible. So we've been uh this episode contains spoilers. So if you have not seen the Netflix Masters of the Universe Revelation, stop right now and go do that because you'll thank me for it afterwards.
For
Yeah.
sure. That's a great call. Good call out.
Um, okay, so now that you're back, uh, that first episode is just like, how do we hit all the buttons of your childhood in one fell swoop? Like, there is there is so much going on in that first episode, and they do such a great job with hitting all the nostalgia because the I mean the big thing is that growing up as a kid, there's a ton of toys that we never got to see on screen.
Right. That's a
The
really good
cartoon
point.
kind of ended at a certain point, and but the toys kept coming. Um,
Which ones are you thinking of?
like Land Shark, I don't even think we ever really. Maybe we got to see Rotar. I'm not sure, but those are the two land vehicles. Um, we definitely didn't get to. Now that wasn't in the first episode, but later on we get to see Blast Attack, and he
Right.
never got an on-screen appearance. Um, there was, gosh, who else? I mean, we got to see Clamp Champ. I don't recall if Clamp Champ made it into the original Filmation or not. Um, but I don't know. I mean, it was literally like, oh, okay. So the other one was like Bashosaurus. That's the big, um,
Oh, right. The
yeah. It
huge
had
hammer that just
had the
smacked to the ground.
arm. Yeah, yeah. It had like a little brontosaurus, or not brontosaurus, triceratops red head vehicle thing that Beastman was driving in front of Grayskull, and just a lot of great stuff. Faker makes an appearance, which
Yep.
is amazing, and he does what he normally does, which is get killed immediately. But it was cool to kind of see that. Um, you know, so so Kevin Smith intended on making this for us, right? Like
Right.
that was the intent of this whole thing. And of course, you know, uh with fandom being the way it is, it's going to be split because you have dumbass fanboys who
Sure.
um are going to whine and cry about it.
To that point, I just want to mention real quick that I there's going to be a lot of me nodding along,
Yeah.
and I'll be honest. If you ask me to drop names of characters, I'm not going to have them. I grew up loving the idea of He-Man and being completely forbidden from seeing it, having
Mm.
it in my life, owning any toys, or playing with friends who had the toys.
Oh wow.
Literally cut out as much as possible. My mom was terrified of He-Man and fully bought into the Satanic Panic. So anything that could have been somewhat devil and not at all God was just horrible in the 80s. So this is going to be a lot of me vicariously living through you. And for me, a lot of these characters, this was my introduction to them.
Mm,
I got that they were making like nostalgic appearances, but like I didn't know who most of them were, other than
yeah,
like Orko, right? That
sure.
I was a big fan of. Like everyone else, I was like, okay, that's who that was. Oh, that was that name.
Yeah.
And then I had to like really go through and like, even when Tila showed up, I'm like, wait, is that really a thing? I had to ask you about it because you named your dog after her.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wait, is this the same Tila? You're like, yep, that's why it's spelled that way.
Yep.
So anyway, I don't mean to cut you off, but I just want to let you know that I may ask some questions because I'm not
Yeah,
going to know
please
the
do.
history.
Yeah. So, I mean, okay, so it's not a direct, specifically a direct sequel to the Filmation cartoon. It's not done in that style. It's certainly not done in the you know, the sort of humor level or you know, kids level kind of thing.
Right.
This is they definitely went with the animation, you know, the anime kind of more grown up version. And people like characters actually die in this. So that's not a thing that they could do previously.
Right. Like this, the sort of power stabbed Skeletor.
Yeah.
Like I freaked out when that happened. I was like, oh, he actually got him. And then there
Mhm.
was blood, like
Yeah.
purple Skeletor blood out. And I was like,
Yeah.
what is going on?
Yeah. It's it was kind of brutal. Well, and but that also plays into the fantasies and the sort of play scenarios we had growing up as a kid because we're going to go there
Sure.
as boys growing up and be playing with swords. And yeah, someone's going to get run through, you know, a few times.
Yeah.
That's just part of play.
No matter how many times He-Man beat Skeletor or conquered Skeletor or defeated Skeletor, we always use the word killed.
Yeah.
Like he killed him.
So here's something that you may know now but didn't know then, and it's funny because your mom is not the only person who, not the only parent who had that particular reaction to the original He-Man as it was growing up. I mean, it wasn't just the Satanic Panic thing, but it was also a perceived violence, right? Because it was
Sure.
also coming out uh, on the heels of the Conan uh, um,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, popularity. And so it was kind of perceived that it was going to be like Conan, which, you know, is obviously quite a bit more violent. The interesting thing about Filmation and what they did with He-Man is that He-Man never punched any other character like a person. He
Really?
never he could throw a person or they would maybe tumble together like a wrestling tumble, but and then they'd end up, you know, somewhere. But he never struck anyone,
Huh.
never struck a person, never laid a hand on anyone. The things that he punched were walls, were mountains, were, you know, inanimate objects.
Right. Even in
So
this show, he punched the ground.
yeah,
Right. There's a
yeah,
big ground pound.
that's a good point. So yeah, it was a very mistakenly perceived that it was violent, and it wasn't. It was probably one of the least violent kid shows on television at that time.
Hmm.
And it had that moral message at the end. You know, so at the end of every episode, they would be like, "Today you saw, you know, somebody steal, and we know that stealing is wrong. So if you see somebody that is taking something that shouldn't belong to them, tell a grown up.
I
So
had
till next
no
time."
idea.
Yeah, every single time there was a new moral at the very end of every single episode.
I remember that for GI Joe. I remember the GI
Hmm.
Joe had the morals, but the He-Man, that's really cool.
And they were great. Now, there's another cartoon that was very popular at the time. Uh, sorry, that's my dog's in the background.
Yeah.
I'm the only one home at the moment, and so they have free reign, and they are taking advantage of it. um, Thundercats. So, and
Oh yeah,
Thundercats is another show that, um, I mean, us kids of the '80s have always wanted to see that crossover between Masters Universe and Thundercats,
for
and they did it in the
sure.
comics and whatnot. We're not here to talk about that, but Thundercats hit the sort of moral ground a bit heavy-handed. Um, you go back and watch He-Man and the Masters of the Universe original Filmation cartoons, and they're still pretty watchable.
Okay.
They still kind of hold up. I mean, they're cheesy and they're, I mean, for small kids, it's still good fun. With Thundercats, you're just like, oh my god, how did I ever not notice this as a kid growing up? It is so like moral heavy.
Really?
it, it was yeah, it was striking. Going back and watching some of that. I have such fond memories of Thundercats. I just
Again, I was forbidden from watching Thundercats, and I wonder if my parents had known that it was all about morals, they wouldn't have made me watch Gospel Bill
right.
and right the greatest book ever
Probably
told.
not. Cuz you still had Skeletor and you still had and they did talk about demons,
Sure. Yeah.
and knowing what I know about your mother. Now we don't know each other. I don't know that I've officially met her yet or not. But what I
Nice.
know of her is I think with her particular worldview, this still would have fallen into that category for her.
It's
So
not quite Philippians 4:13.
yeah,
Check.
I don't think we're there yet. So, but let's get back to the show.
Yes.
Um, so He-Man dies. Episode 1.
Episode 1, after Skeletor dies.
Oh my
Skeletor gets
god.
run through and then He-Man dies.
Okay, so for years I have been running something called Epic Arena. It's a role-playing uh, game situation, and what it started back in Dungeons and Dragons 3.5. Um, and the idea was we never get to play epic level characters,
Right.
right? And so let's build 27th level characters and throw them in a encounter and make them fight and see what they can do. You know,
Yeah.
and sometime I mean often those matches were like over like that. I mean, just and what's really funny about that is it is those characters take hours
Oh,
to
yeah.
build. Oh my god, so much. Like you could spend probably 32 hours building the character only for it to die in 2 minutes.
Wow. That sounds like a battle bot.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bit crazy. Sorry. Oh, okay. Um but where I'm going with this is that an iteration of that ended up being Masters of the Universe. When we converted to fourth edition D&D, those mechanics really lent itself to a He-Man style of gameplay.
Hmm.
And so we built 25th level characters or something. And Nathan, and by we, I mean, it was mostly Nathan, Nathan Rice. He was unemployed at the time. He built every single Masters of the Universe character in D&D 4th edition.
Wow.
And I printed them all out so that we could just you could pick a character and just go, you know. And
Yeah.
it was really great because they also had this monster builder, and so I could create different iterations of the villains of Skeletor and Triclops and Trapjaw and all that. And Beastman always got treated so badly. They just, oh, poor Beastman. Um, but that sort of evolved, and it actually kind of got a bit of a campaign kind of feel to it. And the number one issue that you always kind of run into when you're trying to play He-Man as a role-playing game is, what the hell you do with He-Man? Because
Right.
no one can play He-Man. Like, he's too powerful. How do you can't
Right.
you,
He's
you,
he's the one hero. He's that big guy.
you have to spread the power among the other characters so that they have something to do. In the show, it's just, help! I'll save you. I'm He-Man, and he does.
Right.
So so this episode 1 it felt so much like that. It's like, okay, Masters of the Universe, how do we get them to have some screen time?
Right.
Let's kill off Adam. Let's kill off Skeletor. Just get that right out of the way and let them deal with things for several episodes, which was really cool.
Yeah, it was also an interesting kind of right, like the next scene, this following episode, you immediately jump time.
Yeah.
And I
And it
don't
was
recall,
so different.
so different suddenly, just immediately different. And did they say how much time had passed?
I don't think that they did. I
They
mean,
didn't.
I get the sense that it was a few years.
Yeah, I was originally under the impression that it was several decades, right?
Oh,
Like
that long.
long, long, long time in the future. But the characters didn't make sense, right? No one really aged that much.
Yeah.
So I think you're right. I think the way the characters aged, it was only a few years up, but like everything was changed. Now there was tech everywhere.
Hmm.
Like there was tech before, but now because magic was dying, and the magic of all of Eternia was actually just falling away, and the entire universe was dying of it. They Several people still maintain their power technologically wise,
Yeah.
which I felt to be like such an amazing message and so exactly on point with what would happen
Hmm.
in a culture that
Absolutely.
has.
Because they had advanced technology already.
Yeah,
But you take magic out of the picture and you have to compensate.
exactly.
Yeah, you're not wrong about that. And it was so perfectly natural for Triclops to take up being the techno pope.
Yes.
He was awesome. I mean, that story, and then of course, Trap Job being kind of his
His minion, right?
his,
His
yeah,
archbishop or
henchman,
whatever.
was just awesome because I mean they are all about technology, and always have been. So it was also kind of cool to see, like, bad guys and good guys having to band together to save the world, you know,
Yeah.
in a
Or
way
to try
that,
to destroy it. And
yeah,
right in the case of the others.
right. Well, it depends on. I mean, the people who ended up in the party, as far as the bad guys go, Evelyn and Beastman,
Beastman, right?
they wanted to preserve it. They wanted to save it.
Right.
And of course, Evelyn wants to save it, not because she wants to save the world, but she's magic. She's a magician.
Exactly. Right. She's watching what's happened to the sorceress and feeling it dying in herself, no
Yeah.
doubt.
So, um, that was pretty great. Um,
The man at arms. Can I talk about that one real quick? Because
yeah.
that seemed to be a real interesting plot line that came up
Mm,
where He-Man was the face, he was the show, he was the one that everyone knew and everyone recognized. He was always there to save the day. And the story that built out of it of the most dangerous man in Eternia was actually Man at Arms. This
yeah.
is the guy who does the dirty work. This is the guy who does the fighting. He's the one that does the building. He's the one that keeps everything in check so that the He-Man face can still be shown off. But
Yeah.
he's the one that was really doing it. And I thought that was really fascinating to kind of take that turn at it because I knew of Man at Arms only just a smidge, right?
Yeah.
He's that one guy that does this thing. And it was always still about He-Man, but the idea that it was not a character, it was a title threw me
Mm-hmm.
off. That was really cool. And then what it meant to actually have that title was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved what they did with it. The voice casting on him was incredible.
Yeah.
Um, the guy from the Game of Thrones. Of course, Lena Headey was Evil Lynn,
Right.
so
Yeah. I mean, the whole
that's
cast was amazing. Like
he
Tila was
was.
played by Sarah Michelle Gellar.
Yeah,
Like I wouldn't even have put that together, but when I heard it, I was like, oh, that so makes sense.
yeah. Because and so let's talk about Tila because this is the fanboys' gripe, right? Why is the show all about Tila? Are you going to make a He-Man show, not have He-Man? You killed him off. Blah, blah, blah. So, I think Kevin Smith he knows what he's doing, so I'm not going to worry about it. And he's dealt with that. But Tila's arc, this is a lot of Tila's story in this first bit. And the idea is that it is revealed to her, revelation. She has a revelation that Adam is He-Man. She sees him reverse transform. She sees Cringer. She sees Battle Cat revert to Cringer.
Yeah.
At the very end of that first episode, and now her entire world is turned upside down. And I will tell you, I'm real tired of that trope of I've been lied to my whole life and now everybody's an asshole. It's a very tired trope.
Mm-hmm.
But this makes so much sense because here throughout the whole thing, like from the beginning, only four uh allies know his secret: Man at Arms, Orko, Cringer, and the Sorceress. That's it. It is those four. And
Gotcha.
those four were always with Tila.
Mm.
The Sorceress is Tila's mother.
Oh, didn't get that.
Yeah. Yeah, the Sorceress is Tila's mother. Man at Arms is Tila's adopted father. The Sorceress gave Tila to him so that he could raise her because she had to be the Sorceress.
Right.
And there's a whole episode backstory on that. But Tila's not wrong in this because, like, she's been in the inner circle and they still left her out, you know?
Yeah.
Of all the people that really could have been there for He-Man and Adam, it was Tila, and she really deserved to be in on that. And it has always been kind of women were accessories back in the day, you
Yeah.
know. So I think their arc and what they explained in the outrage is totally warranted, and it's believable. I love how they brought in Evil Lynn and her codependent struggle and relationship with Skeletor,
Oh yeah.
and what an unhealthy relationship that was, and how she succumbs to it in the end again.
Oh my
She
God.
goes
That
back to
broke my
him.
heart. Skeletor shows back up again. We find out that he manipulated everyone, including her,
Hmm.
the whole way through,
Just so he could come back.
just so he could come back. And then she goes, "All right," and then she's just into it.
Yeah.
Like it just blew my mind. I was like, that just really, really just made me sad.
And I know that that's intentional, and it was a great intentional choice. A lot of people thought it was a cop out. It's not. We don't have part 2 yet.
I was gonna say, yeah, this is Act One.
Yeah. So, um, yeah. So the storyline I think is fantastic. A couple of the other things that I want to talk about real quick, because this is a bonus episode, so I don't want to do the whole full thing of early effect on this, but a couple of things I do want to get to, and one is the nostalgia factor of these toys that we never got to see on screen and then finally got to, and the big holy shit, jizz in my pants, um, uh, crazy scene was Preternia, heaven. We get to see the three towers with the. This was a playset. You look on eBay. You look on Google. You Google that Eternia. It's not Preternia. Eternia playset, and it is the holy grail of that era.
Oh
Of
wow.
like it is, and it's huge. It is it is a massive playset with this tracks that go in between the different towers and stuff. And it never makes an appearance in the show. And so and then when it came out, you're like, what is this? Because it says it's Eternia, but it doesn't look anything like the planet.
Right.
What the hell? And in the comics, they do work in what that is. And in here, I really like that they made it into this part of heaven. And Preternia is actually, according to most of the comics and the lore, is like prehistoric Eternia, so way back.
That
Um,
explains all the dinosaurs.
yeah, but they're kind of interestingly using it as heaven. Um, so I thought that was interesting. So that was a massive, massive reveal, and that it played a huge integral role. Like we got to see it work.
Yeah.
We got to see what was inside and how it works, that sort of thing. That was a huge payoff. The other one was seeing the the original heroes, and hero, literally hero, is in
Hero.
there,
Yeah.
um, which is incredible. That it's just great to see that on screen. There, the other one that is, he was a uh, an original iteration of He-Man, a rejected design. But it was the guy with the black armor and like the white.
Yeah. I
Um,
was wondering who that was.
yeah. So that is Wundar, and Wundar, I think was he was. So they made another character, which I'm surprised didn't make it. So I'm very interested to see what role he's going to play in part two, because I know he's going to show up. His and the character's name is Zodak, and he is this sort of he's like the Watcher in Marvel.
Oh, okay.
You know,
Kind of overseeing everything, but not
yeah,
interfering at all.
yeah. So and super powerful, and so but Zodak has a red version of that armor with the
Oh,
white,
cool.
and so but we there is this original Wundar version, and we never really got any sense of what the hell that was. Um, and I just love that they just made him one of the previous holders of the sword
Yeah.
that died. I mean, in King Grayskull, I love that they made him black, because
I was going to say
finally,
that I actually really dug the diversity
yeah,
that was put into this. Like it really played off nicely, and didn't feel, in my opinion, it didn't feel over-serving by any means, and it shouldn't. It should feel very, very inclusive in general, but I
yeah,
didn't feel like there was anything that was shoehorned in to be inclusive.
no,
Like
no,
it really played nicely. It was very, very on point.
yeah. So representation was awesome. I felt, for a protagonist, a lead protagonist that is uh, the ultimate in white male masculinity,
Right.
He Man. I think they did a really good job with that, and I think that's the backlash that we're seeing is these white male
Right.
masculine uh,
Where's my
people
supreme white leader?
are having their masculinity challenged and threatened and belittled or something, or they feel it's lesser than, and so that's why there's this kind of weird backlash, which is so unfortunate. But
Well,
um,
I'm excited that that keeps happening. Like I
mhm,
hope it's going to be, they're not going to be as sensitive to it eventually. And who cares if they are?
yeah,
Because
I don't. I have.
the idea that that continues to change is great.
I'm not gonna lose sleep over those people. Um, so So many great things about this show. You get this great arc. Oh my god, the things that happen with Orko and his bond with Evil Lynn.
Oh yeah, of all
What?
things, right? How
It
that
was
connect.
so cool.
His backstory was like I got the impression like, oh, no one's ever heard this before.
No,
Like this is
no,
so cool.
that was amazing. Um, you know, Orko was supposed to be the Oracle, but he was a baby or he's a kid, and so he could only say Orko, and so that stuck.
Right.
And I loved that. And then at the end, at his end, because he dies fighting Scareglow, right?
Yes. Yeah, because it was the Skeletor of the
Yeah.
Subternia version. Yeah. So
So
Scareglow.
that is that. I always thought that interesting because Scareglow was a toy. It was a character that was always confused with, is this Skeletor? Is this weird? It was even advertised as the ghost of Skeletor, or
Nice.
Skeletor's ghost. And Skeletor's ghost sort of implied, is it the ghost of Skeletor or is it a ghost that belongs to Skeletor as a minion?
Right.
You could go either way. But Tony Todd voices Scareglow, and he's
Wow.
fucking creepy. So
Yeah.
cool. Um,
That was a
it
great scene.
it
Subternia
was,
was, I think, my favorite episode.
yeah,
Like I loved everything that happened in that one.
yeah. I mean, the mythology was so rich. They did such a
Oh,
wonderful storytelling in building upon existing mythology, and treating it with kid gloves. I think.
I got to be
But
honest. When Grayskull wasn't Castle Grayskull, I really had this like, oh, are you just spinning everything on its head because you can? I wasn't really sure that it was gonna play out real well, but like I bought it.
yeah,
By the time it was
and
said and done, by the end of episode one, I was completely all in.
there's a ton of precedence for that specific situation in comics and stuff. So that wasn't surprising to me at all.
Okay, cool.
And it was kind of cool to see that they went ahead and made that the thing. Um, I want to talk real briefly about some of the gripes that I might have, or maybe you might have some critiques. And these aren't like petty gripes or whatnot, but there are things that are like, kind of wish it went this way, or would like to have seen it this way. And one of those I'm going to say is Faker. Faker was my favorite character growing up, and in the
Hmm.
cartoon, he's in one episode and he gets thrown off the bridge of Castle Grayskull at the end, and you never see him again. And he was made out of magic, but he was a robot apparently.
Mm-hmm.
No idea.
Magic robot.
And
That's this whole world though, right? Like that
yeah,
techno
yeah.
Nancy thing.
And he had He-Man's skin color. So the only thing that you knew that he was different is that his eyes kind of glowed this white in the cartoon, I should say.
Okay.
But in the toy, it was a blue He-Man with red hair and a red Skeletor's armor, or I mean, orange Skeletor's armor over his chest.
Right. And when I originally saw him, I thought he was color change. Like
Mm-hmm.
that's got to be it. Maybe he's just
Right.
blue, and maybe if you get him in really hot water, he turns into
Because
He-Man.
that was a thing back then. There was a G.I. Joe figure that did that.
Yes,
He color changed.
he color changed. He went from the white to the blue mask,
Yeah.
and so I was convinced. Like I'd seen that toy. I remember. I was like, oh, this is the color change He-Man. Nope,
Mm-mm.
fucking just a blue guy.
He's a blue He-Man, and then under the armor, you could take the armor off, and you could put this like sticker on his chest to like show that he was a robot. And then you'd put the armor back on. Anyway, my gripe is they had Faker in there. He did his Faker thing. It was awesome.
Yeah.
I just would really have loved to see blue He-Man with red hair and orange Skeletor's armor. You know,
One time.
just I mean, you're doing so great with showing the toys. Can we just I would have loved that one. Um and then There was a couple other things. What was it? Oh, some of the voice things were a little off for me.
Oh, really?
Um, it not
Was it? I mean, was it
much.
because of the fact that you had the old voices in your head so much?
A bit.
Okay.
There is some of that. It took a little bit of getting used to. Merman was really jarring. Because Merman was voiced by Kevin Conroy. So
Oh, wow.
when Merman spoke, it was like Mer Batman,
Right.
and and it wasn't that "Roar, yeah, gurgle He Man, whatever. Which is fine. I think that we can depart from that. It was just
You're like, oh,
jarring.
that's not Batman.
That's the different. Okay, we're going with that now. Okay.
I mean,
Uh,
that I would buy that because if I heard Batman talking through Merman's face, I would have been like, "That's fucking Batman. Why is
yeah.
Batman in that suit?" Like
And
Kevin Conroy's voice is so ingrained in my head
it just turns
as
out
Bruce
that he
Wayne
does
Batman.
not have a huge range.
Yeah,
You know,
I mean,
Kevin
he's
Conroy does Kevin
does
Conroy,
Kevin Conroy
and
as opposed to fucking Mark Hamill,
Mark Hamill.
who threw down Skeletor and was not in any way the Joker.
False.
Could have been so. You
I
disagree?
disagree. I disagree. I There is a lot of Joker in it, but there is enough um, of really Skeletor's disposition. Um, I he was a little bit more of the sinister version rather than the sort of jokey put his minions down kind of
Right.
Skeletor. So, but even if I would say, even if I'm going to disagree with you that there was that I did hear a lot of Joker in it, that doesn't take me out of it, and I think it was a I think it was great. I enjoyed it. I
Yeah.
didn't have any really issues with that. I mean, of course, I want to see, you know, Alan Oppenheimer with his Skeletor voice.
Sure.
But I mean, they
Every
had
day.
Alan. They brought Alan on, which was awesome. Alan Oppenheimer did the voice of Moss Man, who of
Right.
course died in the first episode, almost as quickly as he was introduced.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, he died real fast. That was a bummer.
but then he got, he got his place in Paternia and got to have a few more lines, which was great. But the thing, okay, so to catch you up, Alan Oppenheimer was Skeletor, Cringer, Man at Arms, Merman. I mean, he was nearly half the cast
Wow. So
of,
he did all the voices.
yeah,
Well, almost all, right? But that's impressive. That's a different level of range for each one of those voices where they came
yeah.
through.
He did. He was just awesome. And so I was like, oh, well, I mean, you have him. Why don't you put him with Skeletor? I mean, Mark Hamill, not to knock Mark Hamill. I think he's amazing. But,
Yeah.
you know, Alan Oppenheimer is
He's
Skeletor.
he's right there.
Um,
But
but
do you think
he's super old, super old,
yeah.
and we don't know
And
how
I
long.
gotta imagine like the way Skeletor's voice was done, even the way Mark Hamill was doing it, I could tell there was a strain. Like
Mm-hmm.
he had to add the growl in, he had to add the rasp in
Yeah,
behind it, and then he had to have his highs and lows because
yeah,
he still needed to get to that high pitchy voice. And like,
right.
man,
Yeah,
if you're not trained for that anymore, that can go away.
exactly. And
Which is
as
the point I wanted to bring up. Like I in the same way that Kevin Conroy is so Batman, like Batman in the animated series, like was impactful to my life. That was the
absolutely.
cartoon that I clinged to as my childhood. And so I got to know Joker really damn well.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found it was Mark Hamill like a 2.5 years after watching the
Yeah,
cartoon. I was like, what the
yeah,
fuck? That's Luke. And
yeah.
so I freaked out about it. So I really, really dug it. And the way he could carry the laugh that was actually there and then just went maniacal and his different things. And so when I was listening to it and I was like, who is Skeletor? Because I was like, there is a familiar tone. There
Mm-hmm.
is something I get that's familiar with this. And I looked up at Mark Hamill. I was like, oh, yes.
Yeah.
Now I hear it.
And you're right in that, because what you were saying, as opposed to Kevin Conroy, is that Mark has such a range.
Yes.
His range is huge, and it is. He's very, very talented in that way. And so I thought I'm very excited about Skeletor and what he's doing with that. He-Man. So I got no problems at all with the guy playing Prince Adam and He-Man. I think
Okay.
his Prince Adam is spot on. It's what it should be. Um, but the whole by the power of Grayskull and that whole thing, I really, really think that they should have put the reverb
Sure.
in the voice and to distinguish He-Man's voice, like He-Man was just like Prince Adam yelling all the time. It's like you couldn't have a quiet He-Man.
Right.
It's just his voice, and it's a funny caricature of what you would do, but I think as far as the I have the power and that such iconic thing,
Yeah.
I really really wish they would have done the reverb
I'll agree
on
with
that.
that. Though, by the power of Grayskull, that happened exactly once, if I recall, at the beginning. We saw him
Twice, once at the beginning and then once at the end.
right, but once at the end didn't work out because he got
But
stabbed.
yeah, but he still did the by the power of Grayskull, and that still had a kind of
Did he didn't get to say Grayskull. Like it didn't finish. He didn't get that word out.
really.
By the power of grit and then stabbed fucking spear through his chest.
I
Which
thought he got it out, and then when he was about to do that sword thing, in front, that's when he got stabbed.
I mean we'll
But
have to rewatch it, but
yeah,
like
I'll have to
I'm
rewatch. But you're either way, you're right. Yeah,
I
but
I agree with you though. Even
mhm,
in Shira, for the honor of Grayskull, the echo, the reverb
yeah,
happened afterwards, and
hmm
I think that absolutely would have been it, and it may still be
it
right.
may
It
come.
if the sort of power trades hands, which I'm guessing it will, because Adam died again, like real death, and
And
that
they
was the thing.
made a whole big thing about, hey, if
Don't
you
die.
if you leave this place, you ain't coming back.
Yeah. Like he was in Preternia because he had done his duty and he got a pass from whoever gives a pass.
Yeah,
Like it was determined that it was determined that he did his honor, and so he gets to come here, even though he didn't quite earn it.
yeah,
However, that was determined. And then they're like, don't leave, because if you leave, you're not making it back. And then promptly dies.
yeah.
Like five
I thought
minutes.
that was awesome. That was really a shock. I was not expecting it. Well done, Kevin Smith.
Well done.
Um, but again, like, okay, Magic's back now. Even though
Yeah,
Skeletor is Skelegod now, Magic is back. That means the sorceress should be at full power again.
sure does.
So she
Yeah.
would definitely have the capability of healing Adam and bringing him back somehow. But I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see. We'll see what
Yeah.
happens. I'm very interested to see how they get themselves out of that one.
Do you know when the second season is supposed to be
No
released?
one does. It's not hasn't
Ooh.
been it's like basically complete. It's not incomplete at all.
Yeah.
But it just hasn't been released as far as when they're going to do that. But God, I'm excited about it though.
Me
Uh,
too.
it's so like I rewatched the first episode with Caitlin, and she was like, not really into it, which is cool. But I kept wanting to keep going, so I'm gonna watch it again. And
I asked when I started, I asked Josh if he wanted to join me. He's like, no, I don't think. Wait, is this a new one? And like that was his entire
yeah,
sentence. He's like, no, no. And then he stops. It's like, oh, I thought you were gonna rewatch the old one. I will totally watch the new one with you. And then he did, and he's like, who is that? Who is that? Who is that?
hmm
It's like, I don't know, man. I haven't watched this either.
yeah. Oh my God, so excited, and just very excited for all the characters. Even the new character. What's her name? Um,
Andra.
Andra. Yes.
Yeah.
Talk about pulling an obscure character out of the original lore. Holy shit.
Was
She
she original
existed.
lore?
She is not a brand new character.
Oh
She
wow.
existed as just this um so really awesome. Again, well done, Kevin
Yeah,
Smith,
for real.
for digging into the lore.
Was she a black
So
girl in the original ones too?
no, no one
Okay.
was black in the
See,
80s.
I didn't
What are
know,
you
but
talking
I
about?
wanted to confirm. Mr. T, man, he was my black dude.
I know. And
Bill
I mean
Cosby.
they did have uh some racially diverse characters, but they are also caricatures
Yeah.
back then. So yeah, not great. But anyway, they're fixing a lot of that, and very excited. And anyway, that I don't know if we really need to spend too much more time on this, because I think we just should go watch it again.
Yeah, agreed. Watch it a few more times until the next one comes out. I think it's a good call.
Yeah. All right. Well, by the power of Grayskull, I think we have the power to go watch that again.
We have the power, 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 power. Did I do it? Does that work? Was I good reverb?
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm a voice actor.
And then Skeletor would say, "All right, you Skella boobs, it's time to sign off." I know Alan Oppenheimer, but
No, you are to me.
it's fun.
You're my Alan Oppenheimer.
Fair enough.
We'll see you
All
later,
right,
dude.
we'll catch you.